19-year-old girl loses her life due to curiosity. Cases like this are just the tip of the iceberg. Fentanyl, a synthetic opioid. How did it cause a national emergency in the US? What does this have to do with the Chinese Communist Party's unrestricted warfare against the US? Welcome to China Insights. A young girl, Paige Gibbons, who lives in the town of Pittsford, New York, was a freshman at Hobart and William Smith College. She dreamed of becoming a doctor. Paige was in good health, had a lively, outgoing personality, and didn't have any drug addictions. But one night, just a year and a half ago, her vibrant life ended abruptly with a single dose of fentanyl.
It was right at Bill's kickoff, actually. The doorbell rang, and it was Monroe County Sheriff's.
Yeah, it was 1:05. So Kate went, and about a minute later, it was the loudest yell I've ever heard for my life. And so I thought actually it was an intruder or something, because why was she screaming? From that minute on, literally on 1:05 on November 20th, our lives changed forever.
On the evening of November 20th, 2022, Paige went to a friend's house for a party. One of her friends wanted to have some fun and bought a couple of pills online. They thought it was just a regular opioid type of drug. Out of excitement and curiosity at the party, Paige took one of the pills. It was later confirmed that the pill contained 100% fentanyl. It was this one small pill that claimed her life. One of Paige's friends also took it and was later resuscitated and survived. Another friend opted out of taking the drug at the last minute and witnessed Paige's and another friend's horrific experience.
And she's here, but now she's witnessed probably one of the worst things a teenager could ever witness in their lives. Seeing one friend die and one almost die.
She trusted maybe her friend, or her friend trusted somebody that they knew, and we just thought of her as maybe a little naive in that respect. Unfortunately, it cost her life.
One mistake was obviously Paige's worst mistake of her whole life.
Yeah.
And, we don't want her being judged for her worst mistake she made.
I can't believe that we still hear people, having this same exact situation. I want to shout it from the mountaintops and make sure that everybody knows. Expect that it will happen to you. Expect that you will die the first time you try this.
It doesn't discriminate. Socioeconomically, race, religion.
When you decide if you're going to take a pill or do some drug that's been presented to you, do you want to see your mom's face mourning you?
Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid drug that is 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. It has been increasingly mixed with other illegal drugs, resulting in often fatal consequences. Many families, like Paige's, are suffering from the pain inflicted by fentanyl. In the United States, the number of deaths from overdoses continues to surge year after year. The problem has plagued several US presidents. This is because the increasing proliferation of synthetic opiate drugs is causing great harm, both in terms of the national economy and in terms of life safety. In 2022, the Congressional Joint Economic Committee, JEC, found that the opioid proliferation alone cost the US nearly $1.5 trillion in 2020, or 7% of GDP, an increase of about 1/3 from 2017. And to make the matters worse, Americans are paying with their lives. Vanda Felbab-Brown, program director at the Brookings Institution, testified at a congressional hearing last March that drug overdoses have killed more than 1 million Americans since 1999, especially since 2012, when opioids synthesized from China began to be imported into the United States in large quantities. the death rate has increased significantly. In 2021, the death toll was 106,699. In 2022, the death toll was estimated at 107,477. Most of these deaths were caused by fentanyl use. Retired U.S. Navy Captain Jim Fentanyl and national security expert William C. Triplett II said in an article that the Chinese Communist Party is fighting a hot war with the United States by importing fentanyl into the country. Drug use kills more people in the United States each year than the entire Vietnam War. The Council on Foreign Relations reports that the number of U.S. deaths from opioid use surged to 80,411 in 2021, more than 10 times the number of U.S. troops killed in action in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, the number of people overdosing on synthetic opioids jumped more than sevenfold from 2015 to 2021. Fentanyl is cheap and readily available. It's extremely potent. A tiny amount is enough to kill and is only approved in the U.S. for severe pain caused by cancer and other conditions. According to the latest data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, more than 110,000 people died from drug overdoses across the U.S. in 2022, with 76,000 of those deaths attributed to synthetic opioids such as fentanyl. Fentanyl overdoses have become one of the leading causes of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 45, and one of the reasons for the decline in American life expectancy. It has also caused untold pain and distress to many families. The crisis caused by fentanyl has now become a true national emergency. There are 4 key factors that have contributed to the fentanyl crisis. These are the production and supply of fentanyl, synthetic processing and transportation, distribution channels, and consumer markets. The first 2 factors have the greatest and most direct impact. One is that China, as one of the main sources of illegal fentanyl trade in the world, produces a large amount of fentanyl precursor chemicals every year and exports them to Mexico through smuggling. The other is that Mexican drug traffickers process these precursor chemicals into fentanyl and then smuggle them to various states in the United States. This was the agreement reached 6 years ago between President Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, whereby the authorities in Beijing announced that fentanyl was to be classified as a controlled substance. Before that, the CCP was exporting ready-made fentanyl directly to U.S. soil. While the transportation trajectory is now more convoluted and hidden, the intensity of the fentanyl shipments and the harm they produce in the U.S. have not diminished. In April 2024, the U.S. government passed the Fend Off Fentanyl Act, jointly proposed by Ohio Democrat Senator Sherrod Brown and South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott, officially declaring that the fentanyl trafficking problem has become a national emergency. It also gives the Treasury Department and law enforcement agencies more authority to combat drug-related money laundering, imposes new sanctions on leaders of trafficking organizations, and allows them to use confiscated property for drug control and law enforcement efforts. Senator Brown clearly stated, "It means we're now able to impose new, more powerful sanctions targeting the entire fentanyl supply chain, all the way from the chemical suppliers in China to the cartels in Mexico that traffic the drugs into our country, to the money launderers who keep them in business." Also concerned about this issue is the Select Committee on China of the Federal House of Representatives. After several months of detailed investigation last year, they released a report at the hearing, revealing that since 2018, the Chinese Communist Party has been encouraging chemical companies and laboratories to illegally manufacture at least 17 types of synthetic drugs, including fentanyl precursors, through tax incentives, sponsorships, and other subsidies, and smuggle them into the United States, Mexico, Australia, the United Kingdom, Germany, and other countries. Overseas buyers can easily purchase these drugs through the internet or social media platforms and apps. The report also pointed out that the CCP still provides subsidies to the drug manufacturing industry and that it is using state power to manufacture drugs, which are then imported into the United States to poison Americans. However, the Beijing authorities deny this. The other 2 factors are the distribution channels and consumer markets for fentanyl. Distribution channels mean that after fentanyl is shipped to the United States via Mexico, it is packaged and processed through a variety of underground channels before appearing on the streets and on the internet. It's not only inexpensive, but also doesn't require proof of a prescription. It is easily accessible. The consumer market refers to the target group that purchases fentanyl. It consists of two segments. First, short or long-term users of the drug, including individuals like Paige who use it occasionally out of curiosity. And second, a group of people who are drug-dependent or drug-addicted. The consumer market is the main excuse used by the CCP to attack the US on the fentanyl issue. Beijing authorities have repeatedly charged that fentanyl abuse is entirely a US problem and has nothing to do with Beijing. At the 2023 US-China summit, President Biden and Xi Jinping reached an agreement to cooperate in combating the fentanyl smuggling problem. Authorities in Beijing agreed to crack down on the companies involved in the production of the chemical to stop the flow of illegal fentanyl into the US. This agreement was considered a major substantive outcome of the summit. However, some commentators have pointed out that the Beijing authorities are merely using fentanyl as a bargaining chip, and it remains to be seen whether any real action will be taken. And from the various public responses of the CCP officials, we did observe some of the real attitudes of the Chinese government. For example, last year, when Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning was asked at a press conference about illegal fentanyl smuggling between China and Mexico, Mao said she had not received any notification from the Mexican government and said, as the country with the most prominent fentanyl abuse problem in the world, the US has not yet officially listed the entire category. The abuse of fentanyl in the United States has intensified and the death toll has continued to rise. The root cause of the fentanyl abuse problem in the United States lies in itself, and the problem is completely made in the United States. The United States should face up to its own problems and take more substantive measures to strengthen domestic supervision and reduce demand. It should not always commit the American disease of getting sick and asking others to take medicine. In 2018, then-President Trump publicly called on the Chinese Communist Party on Twitter to pull back on the fentanyl issue. But Yu Haibin, a senior official with China's National Narcotics Control Commission, said there was no evidence for such allegations and called President Trump's comments unacceptable and irresponsible. He argued that the growing demand for drugs in the United States was the real problem. Liu Yuejin, deputy director of China's National Narcotics Control Commission, said the US allegation that most of the fentanyl comes from China lacks evidence and is contrary to facts. China's control of fentanyl-based drugs is very strict, and it cannot be the main source of inflow to the United States. Insufficient publicity about the dangers of drugs in the US, as well as the legalization of marijuana, are the real problems. To answer the question whether the CCP is or is not innocent, these following two examples make it clear. The first example is that in June 2023, the Department of Justice filed criminal charges against 4 Chinese chemical manufacturing companies and 8 individuals for illegal trafficking of precursor chemicals used to manufacture fentanyl. This marked the first time the US had prosecuted Chinese companies for manufacturing fentanyl precursors. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said at a press conference,
"We are announcing several enforcement actions the Justice Department has taken to disrupt the flow of fentanyl precursor chemicals from China to Mexico and the United States."
As the Manhattan U.S. Attorney unsealed the indictment, we can see that the Department of Justice has charged the Chinese chemical company, Hubei Amarvel Biotech, and its executives, Qingzhou Wang, 35, Yi Chen, 31, and Yang, with fentanyl trafficking, importing precursor chemicals, and money laundering. Authorities said undercover U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA) agents posing as fentanyl manufacturers met with Wang and Chen earlier in the year and struck a deal to purchase 210 kilograms of fentanyl precursor chemicals, with payment to be made in cryptocurrency. After a series of maneuvers, the chemicals were shipped out of China, and the DEA retrieved them from a warehouse in Los Angeles in May. It was a perfect chain of trade and logistics that worked very smoothly, and 1 kilogram of fentanyl is enough to kill 500,000 people. There's no telling how many more of these chemicals are making their way into the US every year. The DEA says that China remains the primary source of fentanyl and related substances smuggled through international mail and express mail, as well as the primary source of all fentanyl-related substances entering the United States. A second example is back in 1999, or 25 years ago, the CCP's People's Liberation Army publishing house published a book called Unrestricted Warfare. The core of this book is to use all available means, including force and non-force, military and non-military, lethal and non-lethal means to achieve the goal of victory in war. There are no rules and no taboos, even if it means destroying human civilization. The purpose is to break through the enemy's physical and psychological limits so that the other party cannot bear the huge cost and becomes conquered. This book is essentially a book that teaches hooligans how to defeat gentlemen. It has a very distinct anti-human nature and is also a war manual for the CCP to conquer the civilized world. Shortly after it was published, the book was directly translated by the US Newsmax website as the CCP's official plan to destroy the United States. It is clearly written in this book that the United States is rich and values human life. It would rather use a $1.6 million Tomahawk missile to attack a cheap building than sacrifice the lives of its own soldiers. The CCP's national strength cannot compete with the United States, so it must transcend all war modes, break all restrictions and all means, and strike the enemy from all angles, levels, and fields to achieve the goal of defeating the United States. Let's take a look at what methods of warfare are mentioned in Unrestricted Warfare. It can be seen that these warfare methods beyond limits can be said to be all-encompassing. Among them, the drug war is prominently listed. The fentanyl crisis is essentially the modern drug war launched by the CCP against the United States. Moreover, this invisible war strategy was determined 25 years ago. It can be seen that the CCP has always treated the United States as a mortal enemy. Of course, in order to seek development, the CCP will also cooperate and negotiate with the United States, and even show its friendly side. But this is because it is still unable to defeat the United States and has taken expedient measures, or the CCP believes that it is not time to remove its mask. But the CCP's goal of crushing the United States has never changed. Regarding how it views the CCP, the United States should give up illusions, adhere to the principles of seeking peace through strength, and re-examine the CCP, a dangerous opponent with no bottom line. Thank you for watching China Insights. See you next time.